With more than 2 decades of experience running HVAC companies, what air conditioner did I put into my own house? The house where my great-grandpa and great-great-grandpa passed away. You have 2 different main options. You have an air conditioner and a heat pump. Both of them are going to cool your house the exact same way, because there's a common misconception that an air conditioner creates cold, but it doesn't. It removes heat. So typically speaking, you have a coil that sits on top of your furnace. The air is blown by your furnace. The heat is absorbed into the coil, into the refrigerant. That refrigerant goes outside and it releases that heat out of your condenser, or it releases it outside. And that's how you cool your house. That's how you lower the temperature and everything else. So an air conditioner can only do that during the summer. A heat pump works just like an air conditioner does during the summer, but then it has a little reversing valve to just flip how that is operating. So once it reverses, now you're pulling heat from the outside air, which there is heat in the air down to absolute zero, which is far colder than we're ever going to even dream of getting. And then it takes that heat in through the refrigerant into your indoor coil, and then as the air blows across it, it releases the heat into your house. So it works as an electric heating source during the winter and a traditional air conditioner during the summer. And it's great because down to the economic balance point, which is how I run my heat pump and then I run my gas furnace, for every dollar that I have spent on electricity heating my house, it would have cost me $2.12 on gas during the last 18, 19 years. So having a good high efficiency heat pump is absolutely what I personally would do. So you do have an indoor and an outdoor coil. The only reason I mentioned this is so many people have had bad experiences from different contractors where they bought a high efficiency air conditioner, for example. Let's say it was a 16, an 18, 20 SEER, and then it was paired with an indoor coil that was only a 13 SEER coil. So they were only getting a 14 or 15 SEER unit because those weren't matched up. One of the rare things that the government actually did well is they came out with SEER 2, which kind of forces those matchups to occur. So it eliminated some of the lower tier coils because it requires you to have a better motor in your furnace. So all the manufacturers had to make some adjustments in that regard. And then it requires you to have a better or bigger coil, more efficient coil. So it starts at a 13 SEER. And to understand SEER, the easiest way to look at it is its miles per gallon. So the lower the number, the less money you're going to spend up front, but the more money you're going to spend long-term on utility bills. The higher the number, the more money you're going to spend up front, but the more money you're going to save long-term on utility bills. And so because it starts at a 13 SEER, this is what we refer to as a builder's grade unit, because this is typically entry level and very price competitive, because you can only even install these units in the northern states, which has some of the lower population centers in many of the middle of the country. And so it's gonna have lower quality components. It's gonna be a less efficient unit in general. So typically not something I like to do. It is also just a 1-speed or single stage unit. When you get to a 14 SEER, this is also builder's grade because this is the minimum efficiency for the southern part of the country. So like in Utah, most of the state can do a 13 SEER, but by the time you get down to like St. George, they're required to do a 14 SEER. So then when you get to a 15 SEER is where you start having a little bit better components. We refer to this as a standard grade unit, but it's still going to be single stage, but you are getting more energy efficient. But you still only have 1 speed. And then as you continue up to like a 17 SEER, you can get a 2-stage air conditioner just like you can on your gas valve of the furnace, except now we're talking about the compressor of your air conditioner. Or you can get an inverter, which just like the gas valve, it's a 70-speed unit. It ramps up and down. It's always creating the exact amount of cooling that you need for your house, which is wonderful because if you have a 3-ton unit, you only need 3 tons outside, just to make math simple, when it is 100 degrees. When it's 65 outside, you need nothing. So at 82.5 degrees, or halfway between those 2 numbers, you only need half as big of an air conditioner, or 18,000 BTUs in this scenario, a 1.5 ton. Which means that if you have a single stage unit, it's going to be kicking on and off all the time. This is why so many people complain that their basement's always freezing, but they can't even keep the top floor cool enough to sleep in their bedrooms at night, and they're looking for different solutions. And this, particularly paired with a variable speed motor, is going to be a phenomenal solution for the problem. And your SEER ratings do continue to go up, but for Utah, typically because of our shorter seasons and the fact we have 4 seasons, you aren't going to get much of a payback after the 17 SEER if you run what's called an ROI ROI or a return on investment calculator, your 17 SEER is going to have the highest return on its investment. And so the last thing to consider in these is how is it being metered, or what's pushing the refrigerant into your coil. Old systems commonly had a piston, which is exactly what it sounds like. If you're thinking of a car piston, it would just go up and down and shoot the refrigerant into the coil in a very steady, very methodical methodology. A thermal expansion valve is designed to be more efficient because it is taking the temperature and it's basing what it is doing off of that temperature, where an electronic expansion valve is typically tied with your inverter unit because it's ramping up and down how much refrigerant it's even using in your coil, so that you're always getting the proper cooling and the most efficient cooling for your home, which sets it up quite nicely. And so these are your different types of air conditioners and heat pumps. So what did I put in my house when I have access to literally everything? Well, I of course did a heat pump. For the last 18, 19 years, I've never not had a heat pump. I've tracked it like crazy. How much money I have saved over that time frame off of heat pumps is, well in excess of $10,000, and I would not go back to a traditional air conditioner because of that. I went with a 17 SEER, and I only went with a 2-stage unit. I went with a 2-stage unit because you gotta remember this is very rural. There's like 10 houses in all of Austin. And so I have a lot of farmland around me. And we're in between 2 different mountain ranges. When you have farmers who plow up their fields in the fall, and then they leave their soil entirely bare, and those winds come down the mountain, it picks up huge amounts of dust and dirt and everything off of their soil, and it blows it everywhere. I mean, there are days where you can't even see the mountains because there's so much dust being blown through the air. And a 2-stage unit in this scenario is actually easier to clean. So I wanted to be able to wash my unit out reasonably often because I'm probably gonna have to do it 4 or 5 times a year. And it is easier for me to do it with a 2-stage than it is an inverter. So that's why I picked the 2-stage unit in this scenario. Plus the house is again only 1,050 square feet. If even after watching this, you have a question on what air conditioner might be the best for you or what brand, whatever it might be, post it in the comments below, and me or one of my managers will personally respond to every single comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.